Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Balthazar.
And it's been a minute. It has been a minute because we both went home for Christmas season. I was still home for New Year's. It's been a minute. We have a lot to cover. But the most important things that we're going to cover is news about the transfer portal, because I'm planning on making a video about the coaching staff itself, so that way it'll be more complete and more structured, I suppose to say. So that video will probably include schematic influences, most notable players that have played for the coach, so on and so forth, just waiting for the final part of the coaching staff to be announced, which is a biggie with the offensive coordinator. But the big focus of at least the first, probably a little more than half of the episode, is going to be the transfer portal, both in and out, definitely more focusing on in than out. Then we'll talk about both of the basketball teams, but most of those we're kind of going to gloss over because they were either blowouts or happened a very long time ago. So I'm just going to go based on what On3 has listed in the order of commits for K-State. And, of course, we already talked about the transfer punter from Emporia State, Dylan Davidson. Shout out Dylan Davidson for technically being the first portal commit of the class. That's a trivia question for years down the line. But as is listed on 3, the first one listed chronologically, I'm not sure if this is actually accurate, but the first one listed chronologically is Isaiah Williams coming in from Texas A&M, who's listed as a 3-star transfer. And the book on him is he's just a burner, which we talked about it before. That, by the way, we're going to talk about Jace later, but you kind of needed to replace Jace Brown in the aggregate. You weren't going to get a Jace Brown because there was only one of those in the portal, and he's not here anymore. He is leaving. So this, to me, was getting the speed of Jace Brown back on the roster. And honestly, I think Isaiah Williams is probably substantially faster than Jace.
Yeah, I think Jace looked faster than he actually was at times because of how good of a route runner he was. He was just able to create so much separation with his suddenness. In terms of top-end speed, he's not necessarily slow, but he's not a burner. That really was never his game for the most part. So Isaiah Williams doesn't have a ton of production at Texas A&M, but as we know, Colin Klein never really rotated receivers a ton while he was here. So plus, getting stuck behind receivers like Kevin Concepcion and Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel Roman, that's a tough rotation to break through in those top 3. But he still managed to make his mark. He kind of helped catalyze their massive comeback against South Carolina. He had 3 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown that one.
Yeah, and he's going to be the sort of big play threat / gadget guy in the Colin Klein offense, which, granted, Klein was never really known as sort of that gadget guy type of offensive coordinator. I mean, he'd call the screen passes for players like Malik, who I think was probably the closest he would get to like a true gadget player. But even then, he was big play threat. But Isaiah Williams, despite being 6 inches taller, I think could very well fit the gadget player jet sweep mold that Klein really likes to jet motion, and I don't blame him because I do too. But that's what this pickup strikes me as probably wide receiver 3, 4 on a roster, and you feel good about that because 3 or 4 is typically where you either put slot guys or your true deep threats, and I think that's where he fits in on this roster.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have anything else to add.
Okay. The next one is a commit who is technically very close to our hearts because we talked about him the first time that he was recruited, and that is former SE Cat from Southeast Kansas, Keaton Jones from Coffeyville, which is better known as the armpit of Kansas. Listen, we're from Southeast Kansas. We can make those jokes. But originally he was committed to Mizzou, ends up only being there for a year, and then transfers to K-State. He's still very much the same player that he was coming out of Coffeyville, specifically Field Kinley High School, which, yes, that's the only high school in Coffeyville. He's extremely strong. He might pound for pound be the strongest guy on the roster as soon as he committed. Oh boy, he has a lot of work to do. Just technically, he got away with a lot of things that he just technically probably shouldn't have, because he was playing up against SEK competition. And there's a reason why Connor and I's high school left the SEK as a league and are promptly regretting that decision. But freakishly strong, raw interior offensive lineman that you definitely take as a developmental piece.
Yeah, and he was able to play a little bit. He didn't play many snaps, like maybe a dozen across a couple of games. But he did manage to get on the field still, which for a prospect as much of a work in progress as Keaton Jones is, that's an encouraging sign. And starting with the really athletic traits and the strength for an interior prospect, that's a pretty solid starting point, I think. And like, he'll have a lot of moving to do technically, but I think he kind of fits what Mike Schmidt is kind of wanting. Under Kleiman, our recruiting profile for offensive linemen was more often kind of going for guys that were leaner, that we thought could add weight, but were primarily athletic at the high school level, which, there's nothing wrong with that philosophy, even especially for tackles. It's a really good one. I think if you can hit the jackpot there. But it seems Schmidt is really going after guys that, in terms of size, are already there, but may need some technical work. He's kind of putting together maybe more of a kind of a classic, what you'd think, offensive line, just a lot of big guys, and that's what Keaton Jones is. And I'm curious about his prospects here at K-State, but a guy like him kind of bouncing back from Mizzou after we recruited him but didn't really make a push for him. This is a lottery ticket, I think. And if he works out, then it could really pay back in dividends.
And I think the interesting thing is that we were not the only school that was interested in this proverbial lottery ticket. In fact, both Penn State and Oregon were interested in getting Keaton Jones. And we just stepped in front of them. And because of past relationships, which it tells you, yes, you still recruit these guys, even if you still recruit the 5-star coming out of high school, even if you don't think your chances of getting them out of high school are good, because then you still have that relationship when and if, most of the time is when, they enter the transfer portal. So I agree 100% with Keaton Jones being a lottery ticket. And the next one that's listed, again, chronologically, just going up on the commits page for On3 from the transfers, is Jacoby Oliphant. Oliphant. I'm going to say Oliphant because that's what feels more natural to me. He's listed at 6'4" and a corner. This is sort of big nickel territory for me. Third safety, nickel corner on those more second, third down areas, maybe will linebacker. He's a transfer from Oklahoma State. And to me, this is sort of, you look at the measurables, and I know he's not 170 anymore, which is as listed on the On3 page, because that's his high school measurements. He's almost certainly put on a lot of weight since then. But this is the kind of player that if you were looking at purely NFL, like there's like a one of one player who fits this mold in the NFL, and it's Kyle Hamilton. And it's because Kyle Hamilton is a unicorn. Because most of these guys are actually pretty solid as will linebackers or pass coverage linebackers or big nickel slot guys. They're somewhat successful in college. It's just that position doesn't really exist outside of a few defenses in the NFL. But in college, that is the position. So I really like this pickup just because he fits that prototype mold that Jordan Peterson in his defense is going to need.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Oklahoma State does list him as a linebacker, and I think that fits his style a bit more. But he does have that build. I think you're right, of someone that can get in the trenches if he needs to, but is a type of linebacker that'll probably thrive in space, and is probably going to have more than one role. He's also super young. He's a redshirt freshman and made a pretty significant impact this year for Oklahoma State. He had, I think, 25 tackles and a sack, which that was not a very good defense. So anybody that stood out, like that's noteworthy. So I really like this addition and Oliphant, which I'm saying Oliphant because that I think that's how they say it in Lord of the Rings, because that's what they call elephants for some reason in Middle Earth.
That's reasonable. That's a good reason.
Yeah. So, but I really like him. I'm glad that we locked that down. Should push, I think, to play a lot next year because we're really kind of reloading at the linebacker spot, and we still don't know exactly what scheme we're going to run. But I'm really curious. But yeah, really like this ad.
If I had to guess, and this will be something that's covered in the coaching staff video, because Jordan Peterson will be a first time not true. This will be his first time in quite a while calling defensive plays, because I think he called a few of them when he was at Fresno State. But or at least he got like an opportunity to do so. Maybe I'm misremembering. But he's almost certainly going to run the Elko defense, which is a lot of simulated pressure from a true 4-2 alignment, which we've gone from 3-3 stack to 3-3 hybrid to now we're right back to where we started at the beginning of the Kleiman era with 4-2. We've literally come full circle. But that would be my guess. Probably do some more research into that. But whether it be as 4-2 sub linebacker for passing situations or a 3-3 hybrid linebacker, I think he fits that very well. Now the next one is, there are a lot of pickups. There are no pickups so far that I don't see. And we've mentioned this before that every year, except for last year, weirdly enough, there's been one pickup where I just don't see it. This new staff, I think, has brought in players that I can at least verifiably say, yep, that is someone who could play here. And the next one's in competition for my favorite, and that's Coy Beasley, the safety from Miami of Ohio, who's bordering on a 4-star on the transfer commit page. And it's very easy to see why, because there are some times that you can see a player on a defense, even if they're on the defensive back end, and they just look way different than everyone else. And that was Coy Beasley with the Miami of Ohio defense. He was a star at that level, and he was a star in ways that translate in that coverage instincts are very, very good. Like, he's almost always involved with the play, which, thank God, because our safety room was looking dire at the beginning of the transfer portal cycle. But I think Coy Beasley is a most obvious fit as a weak safety or a free safety, depending on what terminology you use. And then right after him, we get the strong safety. But what do you think about Coy Beasley?
Yeah, I think this is a really great pickup. Another really young player. He was only a redshirt freshman this year. He originally was at Purdue, redshirted there, didn't break through, but really blossomed this year at Miami of Ohio. And I think could step in and play a pretty major role next year for this K-State defensive backfield. I I do like that he also has a lot of passes defensed as well. He's got 6 of them. But yeah, this is a really great pickup, I think. Only thing that you could say is he's a little bit undersized at 5'10", 5'11"-ish. But when you get to safeties, sometimes you just need a ball player. And, K-State has made it work with some undersized defensive backs before. And but it's something I'll be keeping an eye on. But really, other than that, I am very excited about this. He has some proven production, which while I like a lot of these other guys that we picked up, other than Jacoby Oliphant to this point in the episode, we haven't really talked about anybody that has any meaningful production. So yeah, I'm happy with this pickup.
And the next pickup will probably be his battery mate on the more traditional 2 safety defenses, and that's Caleb Patterson, the transfer from Illinois, who spent most of last season, as in the 2025 season, injured. But if you go back and turn on the 2024 tape, you can see that he was basically the psycho safety, I think is probably the best way to describe him, where he very much plays hair on fire, plays extremely fast, really hard hitter, really sound tackler. So easiest archetype to fill thus far on the roster, and that's enforcing strong safety, and I think he fits that mold in spades. It's just a matter of him coming back from injury, which, in the opposite role of true free safety center fielder, we didn't really get as much of with Gunnar Henderson as one might have hoped. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Gunnar Henderson was pretty solid towards the back end of the year.
I think you mean Maldonado.
Not Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar Henderson is a shortstop to the Baltimore Orioles.
Well, he is his position also has an S, so reasonable mistake. They're both.
Thank you for saving me, Gunnar Maldonado. But yet he never really recovered fully from that injury. You could tell he lost a step, and the instincts were still there, but he was sort of having to temper what he was able to do from what he was previously. And I still think he was a good safety towards the back end of the year, but you could tell that I don't think he ever will be the same safety that he was before. But Caleb Patterson, as a strong safety, I'm not going to say that fast twitch speed is not as necessary, but it's you don't need it as much as when you are a true center fielder.
Yeah, I've been really positive about the ads so far. Honestly, I think Patterson is one of the ones I'm a little lower on, maybe the lowest on out of everybody, like relative to their remaining eligibility, skill level, etc. Illinois fans, from what I was able to gather, they weren't too sad to see him go. It's always tough to tell with stuff like that because especially with Illinois, because they kind of face planted in the back half of the season and they probably just have a lot of negative feelings about their roster right now. But Patterson, I think, could potentially be a decent ad. I see the logic. He is a little larger than a guy like Coy Beasley. He's 6'1"-ish, 6'2"-ish. And yeah, he does fill that kind of psycho safety role. I could see him, if in terms of rotation and snap count, being in the kind of realm of Sincere Mason. I think I'd be pretty fine with that. Ideally, I guess in my mind, based on his time at Illinois, I would like that to kind of be the cap on his role if necessary. But if he's able to bounce back from injury in a way that we aren't expecting, maybe he could overperform those expectations I'm setting right now. But right now, Patterson's not one of the guys that I'm looking at and I'm like, man, I cannot wait for this guy. Most of them I'm like pretty excited for. This guy, I'm kind of middle of the road, I suppose.
And although it isn't this guy, it isn't Caleb Patterson, looking at the list, there are two guys that I'm very much like that with right now. But we'll cover them when we get to them. But the next one is another one that's in contention for one of the favorites in this class, and that is another Oklahoma State transfer in Rodney Fields, the running back from Oklahoma State. Now you may be asking yourself, wait a minute, why are we taking running backs from Oklahoma State? Weren't they like bad last year? Yes, Oklahoma State was very, very bad last year. However, the potential of Rodney Fields was basically the only thing that they had going for them in the running game last year. And he actually was pretty consistently solid. Was he great? No. But he was a consistently solid running back, which we had like 0.5 of those if you're looking at the entire season. We had second half Joe Jackson and then no one.
Well, we had one game of Dylan Edwards, if you want to be fair. So
I guess that's true. Was that the which
the UCF game? UCF, and then we got like two like elite Joe Jackson games. So I guess combined we got a quarter of a season of reliable running back one play.
Yeah, and no one else on the roster really flashed at all. And I don't think that's an indictment on the running back room. I think that the running back room is just kind of really young, except for Antonio Martin, which
Utah game.
What a weird game that was. I'm still a little mad about it, but now I'm just kind of like, that was weird. Anyway, Rodney Fields. To me, with Joe Jackson to be confirmed returning, which I didn't think that was ever a question, actually. I thought he'd always made it very clear. I was like, yeah, I'm coming back, which, thank God, Joe Jackson. But this is like really solid running back too. And we're like a true spell back, because I think that Joe Jackson is a true 3-down back. I think that, everyone thinks about the drop against Army, but his hands were pretty good the rest of the year. But Rodney Fields isn't the most athletic guy. He won't be the most athletic guy in the running back room. But he makes up for it by A, running with motor, B, keeping his damn legs churning, and C, he's just kind of creative in the way that he runs. And I think we even mentioned this briefly on the Oklahoma State episode, where we were like, yeah, they run a running back by committee, but I think the best one's probably this guy named Rodney Fields. Lo and behold, here he is in Manhattan, Kansas.
Well, if you go back and listen to that episode, I'm pretty sure we talk about him kind of being one of the lone bright spots of this offense. I mean, especially at that time, I mean, it was really just him. I mean, Gavin Freeman, I guess, was fine, but Rodney Fields was a really great rusher this year, I thought, given just how awful the rest of that team was. But I think maybe something people are overlooking a little with him is that he actually was a huge part of the receiving game as well. In terms of receptions, he was one reception away from being tied for second on that team in receptions. His yardage was a bit lower, but that just tends to happen when you work out the backfield as much as he does. And he had 276 yards receiving to go with his 614 yards rushing. So he was a very productive player for Oklahoma State. I mean, almost 900 yards of offense from him.
Whole team.
Yeah, and this is a team, like an offense that accrued, I think, less than 3,500 total yards all season. So Rodney Fields accounted from scrimmage for about a quarter of Oklahoma State's entire offensive output, which, on one hand, like bad Oklahoma State, like go to your room. But on the other hand, that's like a feather in the cap for Rodney Fields. And like, I think from watching their games, the only other guys I think you could really say kind of live up to the same level of production as him would probably be Gavin Freeman, I guess, but that's about it. I really like this pickup, and I think I think that like while he is, I think, a different style of running back to Joe Jackson in some sense, I think they both kind of have that three down running back quality to them, especially because both of them are for a running back pluses in the pass game. So I'm curious to see how they kind of divvy things up there, especially with the potential of adding another.
Yeah. And it is this ad and one that hasn't been announced yet, but I think it is public knowledge that he's visiting, but just for the sake of safety, we won't spoil that in case it's next episode we talk about it. But it is this pickup and the one that is currently on campus that makes me wish, damn, I really wish Colin Klein used multi-back stats, because he doesn't. He don't. But the next pickup, this is kind of my Caleb Patterson, and that's De'Arian Hicks. Who's a transfer up from Gardner Webb, where, yeah, he was great at Gardner Webb. I just don't know where he fits on this defensive line, assuming it is the 4-2 that I think Jordan Peterson is most comfortable with and has learned the most of. Again, who knows? Maybe he comes out and it's a 3-2-6. Who knows? I doubt it, but it could happen. But to me, his size profile of sub 300 pound guy, 6'4", that screams, 3-tech. Or it mostly screams 3-tech and a true like over under front. And I guess I can see it, but I'm hesitant on 3-techs from lower levels transferring up, just because it's harder to evaluate them. And I know the counter argument to this is, in the 3-3-5 front, Travis Bates, who is back, looked really good, and he's been, a solid depth piece for K-State. And I don't want to be that guy, but K-State is not at the point yet where they need depth pieces. They need a guy. And to me, the ceiling of De'Arian Hicks is solid depth guy who maybe gets a spot start at 3-tech here or there. But I don't want to talk down to it, because I do think that it is a solid pickup. It's just one that I don't see an insanely high ceiling with, and that's okay. Not every pickup has to have, all Big 12 ceiling. He could just be a contributor. And to me, it just makes it less exciting, especially in all the others, all the other pickups. I mean, we've talked about a lot of guys that we expect to contribute day one, and the only one that we've described as a lottery ticket is Keaton Jones, who will be coming in as a redshirt freshman. So maybe I'm off base. Who knows? Maybe he ends up being the greatest defensive lineman in history. But to me, this is the one of two that kind of makes me shrug my shoulders and go, it's all right.
Yeah. De'Arian Hicks, I kind of get where you're coming from with the size, the style. To me, that kind of profile makes me think of like Jalen Pickle, where Pickle was a good player for us, but he did really kind of suit the 3-3-5 as a like jumbo run defensive end. If we needed to, and he was like a solid 3-tech as well if he needed to slide in, so he had a little bit of versatility. De'Arian Hicks had a decent season for Gardner Webb, and I mean, it's in terms of stats, it's so hard to judge a defensive lineman, especially interior defensive lineman, off of raw stats, because that's just really not their job for the most part, to collect counting stats. Like, they're there to let other people do that. That's not really like the best evaluation method for him. But he does have multiple years of eligibility remaining, like so many of these other portal prospects. So I'm curious to see if this is someone that they kind of leave in the oven for a little while. But at the same time, we're really thin in that room at the moment. So I think right now we're kind of adding some backfill as well. But yeah, he's not someone that, I saw the commitment tweets and I was like, doing backflips and stuff. Like, this is still a solid pickup. This is a fine pickup, and he's done well at his level. But it's one of the ones I suppose that's less obvious without really diving into the film, which can be really tough to get individual film for guys if they don't post it online.
Yeah. Moving off of that to another one that I will be extremely shocked if he's not a starter, and that's Makai Mason from Louisiana Tech. To me, this is athletic freak linebacker who was under-recruited because he was from Florida, and you can get buried in Florida. Like, you can get buried by recruiting services in Florida if you're not from like one of the bigger high schools in Florida. And I think that's kind of what happened to him, because he goes to Louisiana Tech, is an absolute baller, and now he enters the portal and pretty quickly commits to K-State. And it's very easy to see why. Because if you look at his On3 page, the first thing that you'll probably say is, oh, he's a little light to be a linebacker. He's a little small to be a linebacker. He's bigger than Jacob Rodriguez, who is the best linebacker in the country this last year. So to me, size is a non-factor. It is, pause. He's just a freak athlete at the linebacker position. And it makes pretty much everything else that has happened in the linebacker room. We'll talk about it. We won't be as long-winded as the new guys coming in. But with everything that has happened in the linebacker room, this was, I think you could argue, is the most important pickup in the portal so far.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, they do list him at 231 for his weight now. At least Louisiana Tech did. They list him at 6'2", but they're probably lying. But yeah, Makai Mason, one of my favorites that we've gotten so far. AC said it well. He really is just an elite athlete, just flying around for Louisiana Tech. And he had a great season. He had notably, he had his best game of the year against LSU, or most productive at least. He had 11 tackles and a sack in that game. And he really is kind of a missile, kind of moving downfield. I mean, he moves really quickly, and I think this guy is a major, major addition to kind of help triage that linebacker room because of how much has been lost there. But yeah, absolutely love Mason. There's not a ton that I can add that you haven't already said, but big fan of his.
Yeah. And that's really all we can say is freak athletic linebacker who just wraps up the tackles just because he plays with his hair on fire. The next one is the O-load he coming of the class, and that's Austin Ramsey, which, by the way, very powerful, very strong first name, Austin. But he comes in, he's listed at nearly 370. O-load, he coming. He's a transfer from Kentucky. This is probably the best argument that someone could make for why K-State would run a 3-down front or a more hybrid front, because that is a nose tackle. You do not put him anywhere else than at nose tackle. But yeah, to me, this is the let's make him a tree stump gambit, which in run defense in the Big 12, yes, please. Because the best run defenses in the Big 12 are the ones that have tree stumps in the middle of them. They don't need to do anything else. They need to be fat and try. And I think that he is capable of doing those things.
Yeah. Austin Ramsey's actually he's a very interesting player if you go and read his profile in Kentucky. For one, his nickname is House, which makes sense, I suppose. But additionally, he also got to Kentucky. He was an offensive lineman initially and had a redshirt season, and in 2024 moved from offensive line to defensive line. And then this year kind of started to break through on the D line. Another notable thing about him is that he actually has lost like 50 pounds since he's been in Kentucky. He's down to like 311, they say. So I'm curious to see if we want him to bulk up again or stay where he is. But regardless of the amount of weight he's lost, he's still a huge guy and has a big frame to work with. So I'd like to see us find a way to get him involved, especially because he was playing his best football late this year. That's when he kind of got the most snaps that he's gotten ever, and that was also his most production. Which again, interior D lineman production, their raw stats aren't always the best indicator of success. But when you've gone from never recording stats to recording stats, it's at least noteworthy. So I like this ad. He's kind of a lottery ticket, and I think kind of us rolling the dice that he's going to continue that upward trajectory that he showed from the end of this season. And also us kind of saying thank you very much to Kentucky for doing all of the hard work in his development journey and letting us do the rest.
Yeah. I'm very excited to see how Buddy Wyatt starts coaching the defensive tackles as well, because if his coaching of the defensive ends is anything to go on, the defensive tackles will also be very good. Speaking of defensive end, that is the next one up. This is the transfer from Coastal Carolina, Jaden Bryant. This is another one where, to me, it's kind of just depth edge rusher, because he was all right to solid at Coastal Carolina, which was not the greatest defense in the world. And he was a defensive lineman who was just kind of okay there. He's put on weight from his On3 profile, but to me, this is sort of, you feel all right if he's a rotational guy, but if he ends up starting, you're a little worried.
I think Bryant might be another one of these guys where we look at him kind of late in the season and see, yeah, sure, he only had 16 tackles and 2 sacks all year. But in his last 3 games, he accounted for 8 of those tackles and both of the sacks. So it's something to consider. Additionally, he's following Jeremiah Johnson from Coastal Carolina to K-State. So we have, some of these guys, we're taking flyers on, we don't have direct connections with. This is someone that practiced with one of our coaches every day for 2 or 3 years. So that is a pretty glowing endorsement and is something that I think maybe gives him a little bit more credibility in my eyes than some of the other guys that have lower level production. So he's someone I'm going to keep my eyes on, I think, because the stat sheet on its own does not really stick out. And he's only 220 pounds as an edge rusher as well. You'd like to see that get up to probably at least 240. But he's still someone that I think is going to, we need to keep an eye on him, basically, and see if he can kind of take the next step.
The only way that he can make that weight work is if we move him back to be like a blitzing linebacker, which I don't see that happening. But next up is Charlie Adams III, a transfer from Cal Poly. He's an offensive tackle. I believe he had a very, very, very low pressure rate at Cal Poly. I'm not sure he has the size to translate from offensive tackle to like a P4 offensive tackle, but he could be a really solid guard. And I think that he's one of those players that, he doesn't have the ideal size to play offensive tackle, but you could make it work if you needed to. I mean, technically, Cooper Beatty didn't have prototypical tackle size, and he's the best offensive lineman in K-State history, and it's not really that close. So, to me, this is either depth tackle or guard competition, which is fine. That's fine by me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he probably doesn't translate very well to tackle, but I think this guy could be a great interior person for us. I believe the numbers on him were in his time at Cal Poly. He gave up, I think it was like 9 pressures across 2 seasons or something like that. I think only 1 sack. So I'm really I'm pretty high on him, and I think that it's way too early to say anybody has an inside track or not, but he's somebody that I think is going to stand a pretty solid chance, pending other transfers at playing next year. And for what it's worth, I just found the tweet that had his numbers. He has allowed 0 sacks and a 3.1% pressure rate. So, again, lower level. So, I think that it still remains to be seen if it will be a true translation. But man, I'm pretty high on Charlie Adams. I think maybe he's a bit of a diamond in the rough, honestly.
Next up will be the place kicking specialist, Robert Hammond from Toledo. He's a kicker. Next up is another target that we were in on when he was a freshman. In fact, he had committed at some point to K-State. And then a head coach may or may not have held the scholarship of his brother over his head, and that's what got him to Mizzou. I can neither confirm nor deny if that actually happened or not. This is just speculation, and nothing that I say should be taken as fact on the matter. But anyway, Josh Manning is coming back to K-State, who had his commitment spoiled by, of all people, Dylan Edwards. And then Drinkowitz came back, got him to Mizzou. And now he's back for his final season of college football, where he originally committed to. So it's another full circle moment. And to me, Josh Manning, prototypical wide receiver 2. We still need true wide receiver. I think Josh Tibbs could be wide receiver 1 if he needed to be. Ideally, he doesn't get shoehorned into that role, but I think he could do it. Josh Manning, to me, is prototypical wide receiver 2. And he showed that at Mizzou in an offense that quite simply refused to do anything other than running the ball because they had Nahmad Hardy and also no quarterback. But he still produced at a pretty high level, just not the freakishly high level, but at a consistent level every year that he was at Mizzou. So to me, getting a proven wide receiver was another need in this class, and it's just one that we had a prior connection with. So worked out perfectly.
Yeah. I'm obviously a fan of the Josh Manning pickup. He was fairly productive this year for Missouri, and that's a offense that really didn't pass the football well. They had Bo Pribula, who was generously up and down as a quarterback and got injured. I think they went through 3 quarterbacks this year. So
2 of them broke their legs.
Well, they probably shouldn't have done that, but Josh Manning still put together a good campaign, kind of collectively filling a number 2 receiver role that multiple guys were kind of right there for. But yeah, he's been good, but hasn't quite had the blow up season at Mizzou, and also didn't redshirt as a freshman, but didn't actually record any stats. He was just all special teams. So he's only got 1 more year left, which just kind of stink, that I kind of burned a year there. But I think he's going to be a guy that slots into play immediately as a receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good story to have him back, or at least from a K-State perspective, it's a good story to have him back. And the final transfer, yes, we've been going for 44 minutes, and yes, we are just now getting done with the transfers in. We will be very brief with the ones that are out and very brief with the basketball teams. The last one in that has been announced as of recording this, which is currently 6 o'clock on January 8th to date and time the episode. So in case something happens afterwards, you know why we didn't cover it. And that's Kamari Burns, a transfer from Cincinnati, a defensive end / edge player on a okay Cincinnati defense. To me, this is another one. I think we needed an edge piece. To me, this one ranks above all the other edge pieces we have gotten so far. That's not saying all that much, but at least I see it. with him up to this point. Just coming from just a pure level of competition standpoint, I think that if we had to put together a team today with who we have in right now, he probably is on the starting defensive line, and I'm not panicking at that fact. So to me, this is maybe starter, maybe not, but at the very least, a Power 4 worthy addition that you can verifiably say as much.
Yeah. I totally agree on Burns. I like him quite a bit. It's nice that he has like a similar level of competition. Again, counting stats not super high, but he I think has kind of played some more interior. He's listed by the On3 transfer portal Twitter account. They list him as an edge rusher, but he's 6'3", 300 pounds. I don't really think he's an edge rusher. I just don't think that's what he's doing. I think he's probably more of an interior guy. I haven't had a chance to watch film on him yet. The word is that he played pretty well individually against Utah. Granted, that was a game that Cincinnati lost 45-14, but allegedly he had an all right game for himself that time. But yeah, we're kind of timing this episode perfectly, I guess. We kind of had a bit of a lull in commitments as the past weekend's visitors have kind of all made their choices, and the next weekends and current visitors haven't quite decided yet. But hopefully this time next week, we're going to have multiple exciting new names to go over, which I imagine we probably will.
Yeah, no, we will. Now we can just kind of briefly go over where, and I do mean briefly, go over where all the other transfers out have gone so far. I will say that over half of the K-State players who have entered the transfer portal have yet to commit elsewhere. I'm not going to comment as to why yet, at least, but just rapid fire, we'll go over the ones that kind of sting the most afterwards. Quamos goes to Tennessee. Austin Romaine goes to Texas Tech. Tobi Osunsanmi and Chidi Obiaizer both go to Indiana. Kenigel Thomas is the one that surprises me, going to Oklahoma State. Jace Brown goes to LSU. Malcolm Alcorn-Crider to SMU. Ryan Davis to Baylor. And then Devin Voss to West Virginia. None of those are horrendously surprising other than Jace to LSU and Malcolm Alcorn-Crider to SMU. I didn't know SMU was built that way because I've never seen their stadium full, but everything else was expected. I mean, Austin Romaine, as soon as he entered the portal, he was going to Texas Tech, which has spouted a civil war between K-State and Texas Tech fans. It really is amazing how Texas Tech has just become – they saw that there was a void of annoyance that was originally filled by Oklahoma and Texas, and they decided – Utah isn't doing a good enough job. That's our job now. And it's done enough to do for both of that, which they didn't have to do that, but they chose to. I don't think anything else is really a surprise there other than Quamos seemingly slingshotting back and forth of whether or not he was going to stay, which is annoying, but fine.
Yeah. On SMU for Malcolm Alcorn-Crider, for one, I do think I'm a bit surprised that he ended up there. But SMU is a very wealthy school. It's a private school in DFW. I mean, they were kind of the originators of getting the death penalty for paying players. And I mean, their donors basically funded their entrance to the ACC. I don't think they get any TV revenue right now. I think it's all donor funded. So you're right. There's no one in their stands ever because they just don't really have a lot of fans, and just kind of by nature of the type of school they are, I think not a lot of their fans are like sticking around either. Like I think they're moving all over the place. But the few kind of mega donors they have are wealthy, like Texas business people and oil barons. So They have a small but mighty donor base there in Dallas, and it's enough to get Malcolm Alcorn Crowder, who I really thought would end up being a Power 2 guy, or in the Big Ten or SEC, but no. And then Jace to LSU, I'm surprised he didn't go through with a few more visits, but yeah, I'm really bummed about losing a few of these guys as well. Also, I think either Metzger or Lofton are headed to Ohio.
Metzger's going to Ohio.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And then there's a few guys listed here as well that were recently kind of nudged into the portal. Hala Jaden Rowe, McGuire Richmond are kind of like the two big names. Calambarda may have been one. And then, Jaquise Bradley Demps. Donovan McIntosh, still listed as an outgoing transfer, but in some ways is also kind of a transfer pickup because we got him to come back. So happy about that. And I guess one more note on the transfers is don't pay too much attention to their transfer ratings on any website because On3 lists Antonio Martin as a significantly higher rated running back than Rodney Fields. And I think that really is all the explanation that should be needed there. Just kind of disgusting.
Ew. And Quay Moss is still listed as a 3-star, which probably shouldn't be that way.
Oh, I guess we'll note the kind of high school commits that have been cut loose as well.
Right.
Which HD Davis out of Texas has been cut loose. And then Miles Teodecki, the lefty who we loved.
And then Cameron Keith.
Has he been officially?
I believe so.
Okay.
He may not have announced it, but his he doesn't have a landing page for his commitment on signing day anymore.
Yeah, so Capers Keith as well. We've had it's probably about the most decommits that we've had in a really long time for a class. But one I guess that's stinging right now is Andy Berberja, who was a JUCO D lineman who kind of flew under the radar, and we got signed, but he entered the portal and immediately got offered from like a ton of playoff teams. So probably not getting that one back. No connection to the new staff, but still kind of burns a bit.
Yeah. But all in all, I mean, it's been 53 minutes, and we just finished talking about the transfer portal, so you can guess that it's been a little busy. But we can move on to the women's basketball team. They had one blowout win, one blowout win, one blowout loss, one close win, and actually two close wins, close-ish. The blowout loss against TCU, I think everyone saw coming. It was 77-55. That shouldn't have been a surprise. Beating Cincinnati by 13. Nope, set 27. Good Lord. I have no idea where I got 13. That should have been expected. Cincinnati is stinky. Barely losing to West Virginia, who's actually been very, very good. But that's still one that hurts a lot because I feel like we should have won it. And that's one that we'll talk about. We're going to pick one to talk about in depth. The most recent one was Houston, which the most notable thing that happened is a very funny out of context K-State tweet that you started. But yeah.
Tess Heel had an incredible game in that Houston game. A lot of it due to a fight started by Janessa Cotton that ended with 5 ejections, with 4 of them coming from Houston. So Tess Heel got 6 technical free throws, offset by the 1 ejection that we had, or else it would have been 8. And then promptly had a mid-range jumper and a 3. So she kind of had like a Tracy McGrady 13 points in like 11 seconds.
Sort of deal going. Stat sheet in the game too.
Yeah, but she finished with 29, and she had 6 in the first half, and only 3 in the third quarter. So she came up with 21, or 2 in the third quarter. She came up with 21 points in the fourth quarter, outscoring Houston all by herself. So
it's just funny. It's just funny. But the in-depth game that we're choosing is going to be West Virginia, because that one really hurt. Because it is one of those that you walk away as like, yes, West Virginia, very good basketball team this year. But that felt like one of those games that we should have walked away winning. And you just look at the performances here. Tess Heel and Nastia Klassens both having a good game. Jordan Spicer having another good game. The one that you could say was off was Gina Garcia. And I think that she's just she has to learn to slow herself down, because she doesn't have the Eliza Maupin problem, because Eliza Maupin wasn't a guard. If Eliza Maupin was a guard, she would have the same problem, where she's almost playing too fast and that's causing mistakes. She just kind of needs to slow herself down, and that'll come with time, because I think with most sports, if you start playing too fast, it's because you think everything else is too fast around you.
Yeah, this was a very rough game for Gina, unfortunately, which really sucks, because she's been one of our favorites here at the show. And she still had, for all accounts, a pretty good season, not only as a freshman, but as a freshman, an international freshman, adjusting to the American game, which is different than the European game. But she, just not the best outing here. She had a brutal stretch at one point in the game, kind of in the second half, where she got just a really bad turnover for a 5-second call for not dribbling, which like that's not really something you see at this level very much. And that's super frustrating to give that away. And then she also just threw away a really bad pass, and that let the lead for West Virginia stretch out to 7. And so that, I think, that stretch there really, I think, is what cost K-State this game, which, it stinks to kind of set that on one person, but like that was a pretty brutal stretch of basketball. Then also throw in K-State just really sucked in the second half at the free throw line. Had a pretty solid first half, but at one point missed like 6 straight. And yeah, there was lots of little things that K-State did not do right in the margins. So they did not deserve to win this game, but they very easily could have. And I think those are the most frustrating types of losses, because this was a crowd that was actually pretty into it and got loud on a few occasions. But yeah, just really kind of fumbled this one away.
Yeah. The next matchup for the women's basketball team is up against Utah, who is having a surprisingly good season up to this point. They're 12-4. Then they get a week off before playing Texas Tech. So that's it. For the women, the men beat South Dakota, UB by 30. Good for you. Narrowly escape against ULM, who's one of the worst teams in the country. And then predictably lose to BYU and get mollywopped by Arizona. There should be exactly 0 surprising results there.
Yeah, I think the only surprising results on paper are going to be the kind of narrow win against ULM and then keeping it close against BYU, which is depressing to say, even though, we know that BYU is a great team. That was a game I think K-State really could have found a way back in, but they just never strung together quality offensive possessions against BYU. And that was just wildly frustrating. And I mean, that Arizona game, was not surprising, but still just, just kicking us while we're down, I guess. But yeah, it's become readily apparent that the first 4 games of the year were kind of like an apparition, and this team is just going to really struggle, which really sucks to say, because I wanted to like this team so much, and I gave them a lot of chances, but I'm really trending towards being out on them at this point, which sucks. I probably will still watch, because I do really like David Castillo, and I love the step that he's taken this year. And Doreen Buka has taken a step as well. He had 12 points against Arizona. Hit a couple threes as well.
Some of the funniest threes I've seen. Yeah. Okay, that's not true. The Ioka 3 is the funniest I've ever seen.
Yeah. But the Ioka 3, definitely without a doubt, the funniest that K-State's ever had. But the Buka ones are funnier, but they're more sad, I guess. It's a sad funny because it just did not matter. But yeah, the defense continues to just be abysmal, and the offense can create at times, but it's never enough. And yeah, this is a miss the postseason type of team, and I don't know what the path is to getting better in the future for this K-State team, because we went out and retooled the roster, got a lot of guards that performed well, and PJ Haggerty is still like getting a lot of points. Nate Johnson, who was brutal against BYU and not great against Arizona, still had his moments this year. David Castillo's on the up and up. Abdi Bashir's for the most part been effective. I don't really think giving more money for roster building is going to work. We retooled the coaching staff, and that seemingly didn't work either. I feel like this basketball program is kind of in purgatory, which is the worst place to be. Like, we're just going to not forever, like the next few years, be kind of stuck in this level of just not really being good. And it's going to be really frustrating. But that's what you get when you give a guy a really, really bad contract when you don't need to.
I want to Grant McCaslin, man. I really did.
We'll always have 22, 23 and that Elite Eight run. Like, I mean, it's becoming more and more clear that that was all Marquise and Keontae Johnson willing that team, everyone around them. But yeah, it's really too bad the way the season has gone and the way the last few have gone. But like, that Arizona game was just genuinely embarrassing, because we're sitting there and it's pretty obvious that nobody respects us as a basketball program, as a serious one. And I'll try and keep this brief because there's going to be plenty of episodes to do this, and we're already over an hour. But like, it was so obvious that Arizona's staff did not respect us as a team at all. Like, they were not stressed at any point in that game, really. But even the neutral commentators, who, to be fair, Jason Benetti, play-by-play guy, one of my favorites in the game. I don't think he was doing a bad job. This is not me saying they did a bad job. This is me saying that they were like correctly pointing out that we did not look like a good basketball team. And they were like kind of doing like, they're like when we do something right, there was like a level of surprise and also like genuine encouragement in the way that you might like congratulate like a 5-year-old for dribbling before moving in Pee Wee basketball. So yeah, man, we're in a bad way right now, and we're going to be, I think, on a lot of big networks as well throughout the year. We'll still find a way to beat KU at home, so at least we have that.
He's just raw. He's just like PC Ron Prince at this point.
Yeah, we might as well tell the students to just start storming the field, at least. But Ron Prince never beat KU, so we can't say he's in. But Prince did beat Texas twice. So
yeah, you have to beat the big brand. In that respective sport. But anyway, next up is Arizona State, who has lost 4 straight in pretty convincing fashion, except for up against Oregon State, who beat them by 3. Then UCF.
UCF is ranked.
Yeah, they're ranked.
Their first time being ranked since 2019. And they beat KU at home. So, of course, when KU is finally kind of becoming a vulnerable basketball team, we've elected to hitch our wagon. Yeah.
I respect that you wanted to go for a more diplomatic way of saying that, but if we keep it a buck, we asked, dog.
Yeah, which is just so crazy to say, given we spent like $2.5 million on PJ Haggerty. 2.5 total on Andre Kostic, who doesn't even play. And like this is like still like a probably top 10 most expensive roster in college basketball. But what's the common denominator?
Jerome Tang. And
I think we've been hoodwinked, Ace.
Yeah, we have. And the idea of, unfortunately, there are two ways out here. Basically, punt on the next. There are three ways out here. You punt on the next 3 seasons, wait for his contract to expire, and I think it's either 2028 or 2029. You fire Gene Taylor and get the buyout that way, or you just pay out the buyout and just put a sacrificial lamb being a head coach for the duration of the buyout. None of those are good choices.
No, especially a few notes. The buyout reduction to 0, it only works for Tang leaving K-State of his own accord. Then the other school doesn't have to pay the buyout. We still would have to if we want to fire him, without cause, that is. So I guess we could manufacture like a wire fraud scandal or something like that. But
I don't want to ruin him as he's a bad basketball coach. He's not a bad person. I don't want to ruin him.
That's the worst part of this too. Is like I still believe he's a genuinely like good dude. It's just, man, it's just not working. But yeah, then the other part, I guess, I think the buyout right now is like 18 million, and at the end of the reduces like 15, then like 9, then like 4, I think, over the next like several years. I think we're hitched to this wagon through like 29 or 28 or something like that. Like,
great.
And yeah, like we could pay the buyout, but I don't think we can build up the football program to the degree that we need to, and pay a buyout for each time. That's just not in the cards.
No, until the Alleycat media empire becomes worth billions upon billions of dollars.
We do need to redirect Tang's NIL to football, though. Like that, we need to cut the spout off. Like we've been increasing the last few years to try and like take us to the next level, and we've genuinely gotten worse every year. So we need to redirect that money, like whatever it takes. Like I know
like staff funding.
Yeah. The individuals like who do donate, ultimately it's up to them because a lot of that stuff is direct. We can't ultimately force them to do or not to do it, but I'd like to strongly encourage them to take their money elsewhere. Let's take it down the hall on veneer, please.
Yeah, at this point, give it to the women's team, give it to baseball, give it to soccer, give it to track. Just commit fully to track.
They don't need it over there. They have a Tara Davis Woodhall that like does all the work for them. Like they don't need money. They have star power over there.
Anyway, you have any final notes before we sign off?
No, nothing else from me.
All right. Well, if that's the case, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I am at Connor Baltzor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store. Link found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.